Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for Batman vs. the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Of course, as the title says, there will be spoilers in the second half of this review, but naturally I will give you guys a huge spoiler warning for when I get to the spoilers, because there are actually a ton, especially for something as crazy as this, where it's like, you would never think that would ever happen. I didn't think it was a thing. They did a comic. For anyone who doesn't know, this is an adaptation of the comic book Batman. I think it's called Batman and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the comic. I could be completely wrong because I have not read it at all. But there's actually two stories of those, so I'm pretty sure this is an adaptation of the first series that they did. They also did a second series, which I'm pretty sure is also finished. It could be ongoing as well, though, so I'm not 100% sure on that. But I was excited for this. I was super excited to check it out. It's been out for probably 2 weeks now, so I'm probably, a couple of weeks behind. It takes me a minute to see the movies that kind of just come out like straight to DVD or stuff like that. Although, this is one of the ones I would have loved to have seen in theaters. Like, if they did a Fathom Events thing, I would have loved to have seen this. I would have seen it if they did a Fathom Events, which hopefully they didn't, and I didn't miss it. I don't think that was the thing. But it was great. I love this movie. I like Batman. I love the Turtles. I like Batman. I like Batman. I love the Ninja Turtles, though. But I was super excited for this. I was like, man, they're mixing in Batman. They're mixing in the Ninja Turtles. They're putting them together. You got the Foot Clan in there. You got, like, even in the trailer they show it, I'm pretty sure. But you have, like, Batman fighting against the Foot Clan. Stuff like that. Batman versus the Foot Clan. Ninja Turtles going up against Batman, because they have their classic moment. It's even called Versus, so classic hero stuff. Like, the heroes think they're villains, and it's like they don't know, so they, of course, have that scene in there. But it is so good. And they also have way more characters than I thought. Like, I didn't realize this until I saw the trailer. I think it was like the second trailer they show some other characters, but actually watching the movie, there are a ton more characters in here than I thought, because I was like, you already got Batman mixed with the Ninja Turtles. Of course, you got the Shredder and the Foot Clan. You probably have, most likely Joker or something, one of the villains at least for Batman, but you would assume like a big villain. And then it's like, man, they have way more characters in this than I expected them to, like on both sides of the fence. So I was kind of surprised by that. Well, mostly on the Batman thing, because the Turtles do go to Gotham in this, so it's not set in New York, even though they do make the reference like they're basically the same thing. But it was really good. It was the action was great. The animation looks really good. But the comedy is probably one of my favorite parts about this, because they do it so well with the Turtles. And they have like a million references to all sorts of stuff, especially from the Turtle side of things. It was just great. I was like the whole time, like, that's a reference to this, that's a reference to that. So I love what they did with the Turtle references, like, just throughout the movie. And I'll actually talk about some of those in spoilers, just so you guys can enjoy them yourselves for the ones that you get. And, if there are ones that you don't, I might have gotten it, so I'll talk about that during spoilers. But all in all, it was an amazing movie. I was thinking as I was watching, I was like, I definitely want to buy the comic now, because I did watch a review before I saw the movie, like a week or two ago. And they mentioned, the person that reviewed the movie, they had read the comic. So they're like, there's some stuff that's actually not in the movie that is in the comic. So I was like, okay, I can still buy the comic and enjoy a slightly different story. And I think that would be cool. Plus, the second part is already out. So I was like, man, I kind of want to buy it for sure now, because I can get like just the full hardcover version and it's like the whole story. So I was like, I might do that now, because this movie was amazing. And I might end up buying it officially, like just buying the movie on Blu-ray, because I was like, it looks so good, and just watching the action scenes would be great. And it's a movie I know for sure. Like, I never really watched like the DC animated movies on repeat. There are a few that I could, like Flash Rebirth. I could watch that like a million times, I think, because that movie's insane. So I love that one for sure. That's one I could rewatch a ton. A couple of the animated Justice League movies I can definitely watch over and over again. I think the Justice League, like when they did the New 52 and they basically rebooted the movie franchise as well, they did like the first two Justice League movies. Both of those are also great. The Teen Titans ones, like the recent ones that they've had, I haven't actually seen. So like some of the Justice League stuff, like the Fatal Five or whatever the movie, I feel like I've missed like 8 movies from the DC side of things, but I love those movies. And I think this fits right in there where I was like, this is definitely just high up on the list, especially, obviously if you're a fan of both sides of the fence on Turtles and Batman. There's no way you can't enjoy this. Like, it's super entertaining. Plus, you get more mature content from the Turtles, because of course Turtles, especially at this point, are owned by Nick. So typically, with the shows that they've had, either the 2012 show or the newest show, Rise of the TMNT, it's it's geared more towards kids. It comes on Nickelodeon, so you don't hear the Turtles swear, you don't see blood and stuff like that. You don't see the ninja typically as human. Normally they just throw them in as robots or something so that they can slice them up. They were human in this. And as assassin human ninjas, they were doing some stuff where they kill people. And I was like, that's interesting. That's a little dark. So there's some blood in this. There's some specific stuff that happens, especially with Shredder and one of the other characters that shows up that I won't spoil because I didn't know that person was in. I don't think they're in the trailer. But they do some stuff where it's like they kill some people, and there's one scene where like a foot soldier was about to kill somebody. I was like, he was just gonna straight up stab that dude right in the back and just do like a ninja murder. And so they get intense. It gets intense. There's some swearing from the turtle side of things. I think it's only like once, and technically it's the same thing that they do from a movie. But I loved it. I thought it was like, man, that was really good. So enjoyed the movie. Of course, if you have not seen it, I highly recommend you guys check it out because it's amazing. If you like Batman, you'll enjoy it. If you like Ninja Turtles, you'll enjoy it. If you like both, such as myself, you'll just love it because it's really good. Even the credits are actually great. Like it's probably some of my favorite like animated credits because they do some cool stuff. And I don't want to give that away either because it's actually really entertaining to watch. So highly recommend you check out the film regardless of whether or not you like both franchises. Even if you only like one, I think you'll still enjoy this movie. Like even if you're more of a Turtles fan, and even though this one is set in Gotham and it has more of the Batman characters, you'll still love it. I mean, it's an action movie. Like it's an action movie with the Turtles and just for the sake of witnessing the Batman and the Ninja Turtles together, you should check out the movie because it's just like, that's just crazy. That's a weird thing that you just wouldn't expect to have happen, but it works, and it works really well in this movie. So I highly recommend you guys check it out. But I'm officially going to get into spoilers, so if you have not seen the movie, go watch it, then come back to this, and just, let me know what you think in the comment section below. But getting right into the spoilers, I gotta say, I really love the action in this. Like, the scenes they have, Batman versus Shredder, that's just insane. Like, that's so well done. It was just so good. They have the first fight, and Shredder busts out, like, this crazy, he was about to hit him with, like, a Hadouken type move, and he's doing, like, vibrating hands, which, oddly enough, made me think of The Flash. But he's hitting him with, like, seismic, ancient ninja techniques and stuff, and he almost, like, kills Batman, and I was like, that's pretty cool. Shredder beat Batman. And then, they have their second fight. Technically, Shredder won both those fights. And if it weren't for Raph, Batman would have lost that second fight too. But I was like, that's pretty cool because I like that. Because everybody was talking down to Shredder. I'm like, I don't like that. I feel like that's one thing. It seems like no matter what happens across the board, when it's like a crossover, even I always think back to the same thing. I always think back to the 2003 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or just TMNT at the time. When they did like the Turtles Forever movie, it was like the big series finale, and it was like alternate universes crossing over, and they had the 80s Turtles come over to the 2003 show, and with that they had the old Shredder as well, and he was just like a bumbling idiot, and I was like, I know it was an 80s kid show, and he's like less adept than especially the 2003 version, which was just like insane. But I was like, they just make him seem like he's completely stupid. And they were kind of doing that a little bit where people would keep talking down to the Shredder. But they kind of showed, I think they did it in a good way. Because it was like, you got the Shredder and then you have Ra's al Ghul. It's like, if anyone's going to talk down to the Shredder, I was like, yeah, Ra's al Ghul makes sense. This is a dude who's lived for centuries, who is basically immortal because he's constantly finding the Lazarus pits and he's getting resurrected and stuff. So it was like, if anyone can talk down to Shredder, it would be Ra's al Ghul. And Shredder's, kind of going through the story where it's like, he's helping out Ra's and is like, all right, well, what's the plan? And then we find out by the end, that wasn't a joint plan. It wasn't like, spread the mutagen across all of Gotham and destroy it. That wasn't a joint venture. It was like, that was his plan. That was, Ra's al Ghul, but I'm kind of looking to push him out, and then I'll control the Foot Clan and the League of Assassins. And I was like, that sounds like Shredder. That, I think, is a cool idea. So I like how they handled that. And like I said, him technically beating Batman both times, I was like, that's really cool because it shows that Batman can't officially beat everybody, but I love that for sure. So I love the action for that, like just seeing him, and it was cool to see him, like he was more in red than he was in the purple, so I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's not, normally you see Shredder, it's like silver and purple is like the normal aesthetic, but he was wearing the red and stuff, and I was like, that's pretty cool. So I enjoyed that. I like the design for the characters. Batgirl was classic. Robin was classic, at least as far as it being Damian. That's what he looks like in the comics. Batman was a cool mixture because it was like the old school comic colors, because it was like the gray outfit with the light blue, so it was kind of like older version of his outfit, but it had a newer design. So I thought that was pretty sweet. I didn't mind the turtles. I didn't really like. It took me a minute, but after a while I was okay with it. It was mostly, I think it was Donnie and Mikey. They had like the circular eyes. That looked a little weird to me, and I was like, that just looks a little weird. But other than that, I thought all the characters were designed well. I loved the design for the turtles on their belts, they all their stuff was like all their sashes were like done up as their letters. So Donatello had like a belt buckle in the shape of a D. Michelangelo's was probably the most obvious. You could see it was an M. It just wasn't orange. And then for Leo, it was like a little sash with an L, and then for Raph, it was one with an R. And I was like, that's really cool. I've never seen that before, so I like that little design. One of my favorite things, and I'd never even thought about it before, but Leonardo having like his katana or his wakizashi like on the side like an actual samurai, I thought that was super cool because for anyone who isn't familiar with the turtles, Leo always has his swords on his back. Like it's always like he pulls them from his back, and that's how he fights all the time. And in this case, it was like a legit samurai thing where he has both of them on the same side. And I was like, it never dawned on me, but I was like, because when I was watching it at first, I was like, something about Leo is cool. Like I don't know what it is. I couldn't figure it out. And then there was a specific scene. I think it was when they were fighting Scarecrow, and they show him like flick the blade up, and I was like, that's it. That's what it is. Because he can't do that if they're on his back. It's not like you can't do like the little flick where you start to take it out. And I was like, oh, that's what it is. It's that they're both on his side like an actual samurai. And I've never seen that before. And if I have, I don't remember it. But across the board in all the cartoons, I've never seen that done. I haven't read too many of the comics, but normally the images I see, that's like the classic look. They're always on his back, even from the originals. So I thought that was super cool. I was like, that's such a minor change for his character to move him from his back to the side. But as someone who trains, with a ninja, it totally makes sense. He'd do it that way, like an actual samurai, and he'd have him on the side. So I thought that was super cool. I was like, man, that's such a minor thing, but for me, it was like a huge like nerd moment. So I love that. Like I said, I like the design for the turtles, the back characters. They all look normal. Everyone transforming, all the villains and stuff transforming, I thought was pretty cool, and it made sense. Like everyone got stuff that worked for them. So of course you get a polar bear for Mr. Freeze. You got a leopard. I thought he was a tiger at first, but it was a leopard for Bane, which I love that fight too because he was talking about how he broke the bat and he slams Donnie on his knee, and it's a turtle shell, so it like snaps his kneecap and it messes him up a little. So I love that. But I thought all the characters looked cool. Joker as a king cobra, I thought was really interesting. They did Harley as a hyena, which was one of the references on the Batman side of things. To like old school Batman stuff. That and the blimps, I think, were the two biggest references because she turns into a hyena, which she has. Those are like her little pets and stuff. And then, of course, they talk about all the blimps, which was really a big thing from Batman the Animated Series because they don't have that in a lot of the other shows. So I was like, that's cool. That's their reference to like the old school classic Batman fandom. Is Batman the Animated Series, the opening always had, the blimp and stuff. And it's like, what's with all these blimps? And I thought that was really funny. I was like, oh, that's, the reference to that. So that was really cool. I'm pretty sure they had the same voice actor for Penguin that was in at least the Batman, not like the animated series, but like the Batman. So I thought that was cool. I think it's Tom Kenny, if I'm not mistaken. It kind of sounded like him, but not really. So I could be wrong on that. But I thought that was cool. We get to see, the classic Rogues Gallery, Scarecrow, Joker, Poison Ivy. That was a really good one. That was funny. And she was just stuck, and they're like, "Oh, so let's just shimmy to the side," and they just open the door and walk out. And the scene before that was hilarious to me with Raph and Robin, and they like jump, they're jumping off the stairs and stuff, and they got the music playing, and Mikey just falls like on the stairs, and they just cut the music. I thought that was a really funny scene too, so I loved that. But it was really good, like the scene with Ivy. I thought that was funny, and it's like, oh, that makes sense. Like she'd mutate into a plant, and plants are rooted. Yeah, that works. That's science. So I thought that was a good joke, and it was like dramatic and stuff. It's like, oh, how are they gonna fight, Poison Ivy? And she just couldn't reach, and they're like, well, let's just shimmy, and we'll just open the door, and we're out of here. And that's Poison Ivy. So I thought that was funny, but I love that for sure. So I like getting to see the characters, and I thought they were just showing them at first. It was like, oh, we're going to the Joker. I thought they were just kind of going by, and it's like, here's the classic Rogues Gallery because they're in Arkham Asylum. So, here's all your staples. And it made sense. It was like, sure, they had Penguin in there. He actually had a fight with the Turtles. And then you got Ra's, who's obviously fighting, and Joker, who once they got him, I was like, okay, he's gonna show up in the fight, and it would make sense if he's there and they show Harley, she's gonna be there too. I didn't think they were letting everybody out though, so I thought that was super cool. And seeing them transform, we get a cool fight scene through Arkham Asylum, which was I will say this, it was the weirdest version of Arkham Asylum I've ever seen, because I swear it looked like an abandoned mansion. It looked like they were in like some haunted Scooby-Doo mansion or something. That was like the weirdest thing. Like I noticed that a little bit, just some of the spots they were in. I was like, this doesn't look like Arkham Asylum. It legitimately looks like they're just in a rundown facility, which I guess it kind of makes sense Arkham would be, but it was funny. It was like, also, they never showed those hostages, by the way. Like, the hostages were fake, but there's literally no one in that building but the villains. So it was kind of funny. Like, that was one of the things I noticed. I was like, this building looks super old. It doesn't look like oh, it's an old asylum. It looks like they just walked into an abandoned mansion. Like that's legitimately what it felt like. And they're walking through these hallways, and I'm like, this just looks like an old house. It was like some like I said, like some Scooby Doo type stuff. So I thought that was kind of funny. Like if you think of the scene when they were running up the stairs, like when Mikey falls, it was just little stuff like that where it was like, it was like an abandoned, it just looks abandoned, like the banister was broken and stuff like that. I was like, they wouldn't fix that. Little things that I was noticing, and I was like, this just looks like an abandoned building to me. So it was kind of funny seeing that, but I didn't think of that as I was watching it. It's honestly like all coming to me now, just having like these little flashes, like all of that just looks straight up abandoned. Like even when they first walk in, it was like, it just looked like an open mansion or something. So it's kind of funny to think of that now. But still loved it. Still enjoyed every second of that. All the action was good. Baxter Stockman was funny in this. I thought he was cool. Super tiny. I wasn't expecting that. I thought it was going to be, like, I knew it was going to be the bug version, but I didn't expect him to be, like, super tiny. Like, when he's flying up, I was like, he's small. And then, like, Shredder grabs him by the throat, and I was like, he's basically got, like, 28% of his body right now with a chokehold. And I was like, that's weird. I've never seen him, like, so small in his bug form. So I thought that was interesting. But I like that. The scene when Damien tries to fight him, and he, like, vomits and passes out. I was like, that fits perfectly for him, but it was super funny. As far as the Turtles references, I loved them for sure. They have like a bunch. They do, of course, Donatello does machines. Michelangelo's the party dude. Batman says it's pizza time, which is, it's pizza time. It's a big reference to like TMNT 4, Turtles in Time. Like every time you get the pizza, it's like, it's pizza time. They reference the game, and two of my favorite things in this whole movie were references to the game. One was super obvious, but the other one people could have missed and you wouldn't know it was a reference. But when, I think it's Leo and Donnie, when they first go up and they end up, like before they end up fighting Raish and Batman, before Batman fights Shredder, they're running up the stairs and you see Raphael fighting somebody on the pipe. And he grabs this person with his sai and he starts slamming them back and forth. And that's a move from the game on Super Nintendo, TMNT 4, Turtles in Time. And so I was like, that was awesome. I love that reference because I was like, that's definitely why they did that. And he's like slamming them back and forth. I was like, that's from the game. So I thought that was awesome because I was like, that's a specific move. And then they have the scene with Mikey and he grabs one of the foot ninjas and he flips him and he throws him at the screen. I was like, that's definitely from the game. So, and that's my favorite Super Nintendo game. So like any reference to that specific game, I like lose my mind because I'm like, this is my favorite Super Nintendo game. That's what made me, love the Turtles in the first place. So those two moments were my favorite references in the entire movie because I was like, that is specifically a reference to like the old video game. But they referenced the game, they referenced the cartoon with, like I said, the Donatello thing, Michelangelo. They reference it when they do the cool suit up scene, and they have it where the turtles come out of the sewer and they pan up to the sky, and then like the turtles like jump out. I was like, that's a reference, to the cartoon, the game as well, because the game also has that opening. But I was like, that's super awesome. And I think that was the first reference, was like they do that reference, and it's a reference to the cartoon where it shows the sewer, the manhole cover, and then it pans up to the skyline and the turtles hop out. I was like, that's awesome. So that was a sweet reference to the cartoon. I think that's all of them. I'm pretty sure that was all of them that I can actually think of. They did have, one of the things I liked was that they had Shredder, when he actually took the mask off, he had like the 3 slashes from where Splinter scratches him across the face. So it would be interesting to see if Splinter does show up, if they end up doing a sequel. If Splinter shows up and they go with like the original comic book origin, which is Splinter initially was legitimately a rat, and they changed that in the cartoon to say that he was human who was like touching a rat or whatever when the ooze came on him, and that's how he turned. But in the original storyline, he was legitimately just a rat who got transformed, and then he became, a genius rat. So it would be interesting to see if they go with that storyline and, the scratches and stuff. But I love what they did with it. I thought the action was good, comedy was good, references were phenomenal for a nerd like me who's looking for cool, old school Ninja Turtle references. So I loved all of that stuff. Post-credit scene, very interesting. As soon as he fell in, I was like, okay, Super Shredder. Always Super Shredder. They seem to make a reference that they may or may not have already dealt with a Super Shredder before, and that would be interesting. But they, Leo says at the end, it's like, we've kind of counted Shredder out before and been like kind of sorely mistaken. So I was like, okay, that could be Super Shredder. It could just be one of the many times that Shredder is seemingly dead and then poof, he comes back to life. But I like that idea. So I hope we do get a second movie for sure. It would just be great. It would be like, what do you do with Joker Shredder? So that would be cool. He looked gross too, like when they actually show him and you see that him falling into like the Joker toxin / mutagen mix, which I love that reference where they're like, we call it ooze, and it's like, I'm not gonna call it that. Like the whole movie was like mutagen or ooze. And ooze is like the old term, which is funny because if you watch the 2012 show, they don't really say ooze very often. They always talked about it like as mutagen. So it was kind of funny where it's like, yeah, we call it ooze. And I was like, that's funny because they didn't do that in the 2012 show. So it's been a minute since I'm like, yeah, that's ooze. But they do call it mutagen. They did end up changing that. So it was funny to see them have that back and forth with Barbara, which is like, I'm just going to say it's mutagen. It's like, get him with the anti. It was like anti-mutagen. So that was funny. But it was interesting to see his face, like when he does transform, like the 3 scratches are like his face is like actually split open. And I was like, that actually looks gross because it was just normal scars before, but then like right at his lips, it was just like open and you could see like his gums were like bigger and stuff. And I was like, that's an interesting way to design that. It just looked a little bit gross, but ultimately I thought it looked really cool. I was like, it's a cool way to do that. But we'll love to see them do a sequel. We'll love to see a Jokerized Shredder. I guess it wouldn't be Super Shredder, but I guess it is half mutagen, so it'd be like enhanced, Shredder, enhanced Joker Shredder. But I would love to see that. I think that would actually be great to see what they would do with that sequel, what they would add from the original comic that they didn't put in, if there's anything that's really big. Obviously, I would assume the second series, if it's anything like any crossover ever, if the first series takes place in one franchise's location, then the second one is the opposite. So instead of it being in Gotham, the sequel will most likely take place in New York, which means we would get to see both Casey and April. So, as well as, of course, Master Splinter. So I think that would be really cool. And I thought April was going to be in this because there was a scene in the beginning when they're doing the credits and they have like all the silhouettes and stuff. The yellow boots, I think, were actually for Barbara. I was thinking for some reason that those were related to April. But that would be cool. And I would love for them to make some of those jokes because, both Barbara and April, like, Barbara looks just like April. During that opening scene, I don't know if that's meant to be a reference as well. But she looks exactly like April because I had never thought about it until I saw, like, the trailer is, like, that specific scene where they do the introduction. And, or it's, like, one of the clips I saw. And I was like, she looks exactly like April. And, she has the hair up, she has green eyes. And I was like, I literally never once noticed that before in my life, that they, they're both redheads with green eyes. So I thought that was super funny. I was like, that's very interesting that they specifically did it that way. Because I don't think I've ever paid any attention to Barbara, like, having her hair up before either. So it was like, once I saw that look, it makes me think of April. Because unless I'm thinking of, like, 80s April with the long hair, I'm like, yeah, her hair is always short and it's always done up. So it was kind of funny to see that. And I was like, I think maybe that was meant to be that reference to, like, look how similar we made Barbara look to April O'Neil. But I would love to see April, love to see Casey, love to see Splinter. Like, if they go to New York, maybe some of the other characters, they wouldn't be nearly as popular. Like, for me, I'd be like, oh, yeah, that's this character, that's that character. So a lot of people probably wouldn't get the references nearly as well as, here's Batman's Rogue Gallery. But I'd like it, and I think it would still be cool, like, just to introduce people to that, since they already did it the first time. Why rehash the characters? Just tossing in, the TMNT characters, throw in Krang. I think people are familiar enough, especially considering the live-action movies, at least. You got Krang and Shredder, so add in Krang, add some of that stuff in, maybe throw in some Utrons, or, Krang is a Neutron. Throw in just some of the other species. I don't know if they would get, like, super crazy alien-wise, but they could. I think they'll be sweet. But love the movie, love the credits. I always love that idea where you have, like, comic book covers and you mix it in. So they would swap in the turtles with other characters. One of my favorites was the one where it's supposed to be Batman. It was like the first cover where they introduced Robin and Mikey's jumping through the thing. That was what that cover was, and it was supposed to be Robin. And I was like, that makes perfect sense. It would be Michelangelo for that. They have the cover with Raphael versus Nightwing, so I thought that was pretty sweet. And it was like old school Nightwing. So I was like, that's super awesome. Excuse me. Classic TMNT cover, like the original first cover. Then they threw in Batman and Robin there. The stuff with, like, Batgirl, some of the more recent stuff. And I like how they did it with all the different art styles. So I was like, that's pretty sweet that they went through and took the time to, actually draw those pictures. Because even if it's just a picture, it still took time for them to, like, go in and be like, all right, this is the style of this specific, comic. Let's try to match that and throw in a different character. Or this is this old comic. Let's swap in the character here. So I think that was just a really cool thing to do. I'd love to, like, actually just see, like, some prints of those pictures, really. But all in all, fantastic movie. I love the crap out of it. I might watch it. I might try to get somebody else to watch it with me just so I watch it again. But man, I hope we get a sequel. I'm probably gonna end up buying this at some point. It might not be soon, but I think eventually I'll end up buying this, and I'm probably gonna end up getting, like, the hardcover version of the comic too, because I love the crap out of this. I was just having a great time. But of course, Would love to know what you guys thought about the movie, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. If there is going to end up being a sequel, what would you guys like to see? Whether you've read the comics or not, I would love to know what you guys would like to see for a sequel, what you guys thought they did well, what you guys thought they didn't do well as far as, this first movie. What did you think of the reference? What was your favorite reference, whether it was, on the Batman side or the Turtle side? We'd love to know what you guys thought about it, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.